That drag right there set to about 25, 30 pounds. Holy, I'm gonna have to tighten up before it trips. Hey, what's up guys? Nick the Informative Fisherman here, and today we're here at P-Line headquarters, and I'm sitting here with Don Newman, one of the Mr. P-Line men himself. Don's an expert in all their lines right here. So what we're gonna do today is go over all the different lines. I'm gonna ask Don some questions and hopefully educate you guys a little bit more on the products they have and really get you out there and use this stuff and utilize it like I do. All right, Don, let's start off. Let's break into a line here and break it down for us.
Well, let's just go in chronological order. The P-Line Original is the first line that we introduced. It was the first copolymer line introduced into the United States.
Okay.
1982 is when it came into the market. It's a real soft line, works fantastic on a spinning reel. It's got a little bit of stretch to it, which means it's a pretty forgiving line. Great surf line, very castable. The trout guys like it a lot because it works well on a spinning reel. It comes in a smoke blue color, which disappears into the offshore blue conditions.
Okay.
So it's a pretty versatile line.
Nice. Okay. And this is a good line for me to get started off with. Let's say I wanted to take the kids or the family out there. Would this be a pretty good line choice for me?
Yeah, I think so, because most of the time, under those circumstances, with kids, you're using a spinning reel. With a spinning reel, you're wanting a line that's got low memory, soft, that's gonna be fisherman friendly. So yeah, I think it's a great line for that.
Great. Yeah, I've been seeing this around for years. Apparently, I'm still older than this line, and he made it sound classic. So apparently, I'm aging, so don't look at the grays. But that's a good one. All right, nice. What else do we have to work with here?
The next introduction was CX Premium. This came out a few years later. The CX Premium is a fluorocarbon coated line. They were coating this line with fluorocarbon before anyone in the American market knew what fluorocarbon was or what the positive attributes of fluorocarbon were.
Okay.
We make this line in 3 different colors. We do it in a clear fluorescent, we do it in a high visibility green, and we also do it in a low visibility moss green.
Nice.
I love this line because it's a small diameter line, again, works well on a spinning reel, has awesome castability.
Yeah, I've recently just had the privilege with Don out there fishing the Trinity for Steelhead with the CX Premium, and I'm absolutely thrilled about this stuff. I even started drop shotting with it recently. I'm a huge fan. My buddies are begging me for this stuff. Nick, give me some of that stuff. I said, hey, run to the store. It's there. Go get it.
It's got low stretch too. You know, we talked about the P-Line Original having a little bit more stretch. The CX Premium is a very low stretch line when it comes to copolymer lines.
Nice.
So it's going to be sensitive. You're going to feel what's going on at the end of the line real well on the CX Premium.
Fantastic. No, it's a great choice. I've recently started using this a whole lot more in a lot of my presentations. Really happy with that line. The memory's extremely low too.
Yeah, it's a small diameter line, and again, it's going to work good on a bait casting reel or a spinning reel. Some of the other lines, you know, are more one direction or the other. This is a really good multi-purpose line.
Fantastic. Nice. It's a good choice there.
The CXX would be the next line. This is the line that no matter what you're doing, you could be sturgeon fishing out in the Delta, you could be pulling on tuna offshore, you can be up in Alaska salmon fishing. It is the strongest, toughest, most durable resistant, most shock resistant line that we have.
Yeah, when my kids are getting away from me, normally I'll tie this onto the back of them and they would jump over the car, just hoist them back over.
The biggest complaint that we get from people on this line is that they can't break it when they snag the bottom.
Yeah, that's too bad. Sorry guys, you're getting your lure back whether you want to or not.
It's tough, it's abrasion resistant. We make it in 5 different colors. We do this in a clear, we do it in moss green, we do it in a clear fluorescent, we do it in a smoke blue, and we do it in a high visibility green.
Yeah, I really like the high visibility recently. A lot of my big game fishing when I'm out there, my buddies have their heads down and they're pointing at the fish and I'm like, hey, I don't want you wrapping your fingers around my line. That's always a great choice. A lot of people don't really know how to utilize the colors. What would you say the benefit of the colored line is for the most part?
That's a great question. A lot of the guides like the high visibility green because they can see what their customers are doing. A lot of times you have to back the boat down or maneuver a boat when you're following a fish. Again, the high visibility green works great. The moss green really blends into the watercolor. It's a real stealthy line. It's hard to see in the water. So I think there's a benefit there under clear water conditions. If you go offshore, the smoke blue is what the guys want. They like that smoke blue color. They like it blending into that offshore water color.
Now here's a quick question for you. A lot of people, I've had this brought up and I know the answer, but I'd like you to address it too. People say, well, isn't this gonna bother the fish once it gets close? And, well, sure, if it's crystal clear water, it could bother the fish, but that's what leader material's for. And why don't you break down one of the leaders for us, you know? P-line makes a lot of great leader material, and CFX is the one recently I've been using as well that I really like. So what is the real benefits about using a good quality leader material?
Well, I think exactly what you said. This is going to be your main line, but at the business end of the line, where the fish is actually coming into contact with your bait or your lure, running a 3 to 5 foot piece of fluorocarbon leader material is really going to reduce the visibility. They're not going to get spooked. They're not going to get line shy, and you're going to get bit better using fluorocarbon leader material.
Nice. Hey, can I find the CFX in the stores?
Yeah, we make this. We go all the way down to 2 pound on the CFX fluorocarbon leader, and all the way up to 60 pound on this particular product.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah, there's a broad size run of this.
All right, great. So recently in my crappie episode, you saw me serving up a beating on those bad boys on Floor Clear right here. Now, I love this stuff, and I could break it all down to you and brag about it all day long, but Don, you're the expert here. Break this bad boy down for us.
Well, the unique thing about this line, it's got a fluorocarbon coating. What they do is they take a fluorocarbon silicone bath. Once the line comes out of the extruding machine, goes through the bath, it's absorbed onto the surface of the line. What that does, it reduces the water absorption, and it also reduces the visibility of the line. We do this line in 2 different colors. We do it in a mist green, and we also do it in a clear. But I would say the selling point of this line, the biggest attribute to any angler is going to be castability.
Yeah, no joke.
You know, you're throwing little tiny crappie jigs, and you're
Virtually weightless.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And whether you're out on the surf throwing plugs that you need distance to get them out past the breakers, you're throwing real light baits, shaky heads, darter heads, things like that. The castability is the main selling point of this line, and the fact that it has no memory, it works great on a spinning reel or a bait casting
Oh, it's
reel.
fantastic. Yeah, I was throwing 2 and 4 pound tests, launching out there, setting at home. That stuff was fishing so good for me on weightless, and the bite detection was still really good on that too. You know, which was amazing. And I'm using a slow rod that there's so much limberness in there. You would think you wouldn't even be able to detect a bite, but the bite detection was still really good for me. Right on. So now, let's say if I were to switch over to like 100% fluorocarbon, recently, which I've been doing really long setbacks for my trolling for brown trout and things like that. And let's say if I were to fish Floor Clear versus the 100% fluorocarbon, what's the more beneficial part about me switching to 100% over here?
The attributes of the lines are so different. First of all, fluorocarbon is 3 times denser than monofilament. Because of that density, it's not going to handle as well on a reel. It's just not.
Right.
But there are positive attributes of it that far outweigh the fact that it's going to have a little bit more memory.
For certain.
The main thing is invisibility. Fluorocarbon is the same refractive index as water. It doesn't allow the transfer of light down the water. So once it gets in the water, it's stealthy. The fish aren't going to be able to see it, and you're going to get bit better.
Oh yeah.
The other main attribute is density. It's 3 times denser than monofilament or nylon-based lines. Because of that density, it transmits bites better.
Oh yeah,
So when
tremendously.
you're drop shot in 40 feet of water and you're trying to figure out whether you just bumped a rock or a fish just inhaled your bait, you're going to be able to tell that a lot better with fluorocarbon than you are with a nylon-based line.
What I've noticed with that, I'll have a line set back 150, 180 feet behind the boat fishing for browns. And I have this little tiny rip bait that twitch it all over. And a lot of the times I'll use other lines and it just looks like my rod has a little bit of load on it. But when I've been using the 100% fluorocarbon, I can still see that. At 180 feet away, I can still see my rod tip moving. And my plug out there, I know it's working from that. So that's a really tremendous advantage that I know my bait's not hung up, I'm not dragging grass. So I really like that about the fluorocarbon as well.
It's really... You can't go to a bass tournament, a serious bass tournament now, and not see half the reels in the tournaments full of fluorocarbon.
Yeah, that's the truth. Yeah, I've been out there so many times.
And those guys are fishing for money. They've got a paycheck on the line. So that tells you...
Hey, I do too. Yeah, right.
That tells you the benefit of fluorocarbon, exactly.
Right on.
We also have a second fluorocarbon, 100% fluorocarbon. This is Halo. And what we've done, this is the first co-fluoride. We were the first copolymer back in '82 with the P-Line Original. We're the first co-fluoride. And what we've done
Fluoride,
here...
so you're saying I can floss with this?
No, you don't want to floss with this. You don't want to break your teeth. With the Halo, what we've done is we've taken a hard fluorocarbon crystal and a soft fluorocarbon crystal, and we've extruded them together. So we're blending different types of raw materials.
Nice.
And what we've tried to do is we've tried to reduce the memory, increase the abrasion resistance, and just make that real high-end, top-quality fluorocarbon product. And that's what the Halo is.
I'm gonna have to put that bad boy on my reels here and give that guy a work over.
The other thing is we do this in a mist green color. It's just got a very light tinge of green to it. And again, with it doesn't allow the transfer of light, blends into the water, just a super product.
Nice. So basically, the Halos address the old problems with the old fluorocarbon, even though I know this is way more advanced than the old styles of fluorocarbon. A lot of people are telling me the old fluorocarbon was brittle. They didn't know how to tie certain knots with it because their knots were completely different than tying with other conventional lines. So Halo was to address those older issues that fluorocarbon had.
Well, exactly. I think that one of the things is all of the P-Line products are using Japanese raw materials when it comes to the product itself. Early fluorocarbon products, and I'm not talking about P-Line, but other products that were out in the market, were using European raw materials, and they were using American raw materials, and they were using lower grade raw materials to try and address the cost of fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon takes 8 times longer to extrude than a copolymer or a monofilament.
I often get asked that, yeah.
So because of the production time, it's more expensive. The raw material is drastically more expensive than nylon. So what what factories tried to do in the early stages of fluorocarbon was cheapen the price by using cheaper raw materials. And that's why we got inferior product early on, and that's why people had a negative taste in their mouth about fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon, the advancement of fluorocarbon in the last 10 years, I would say product is twice as good as it was when it originally came out.
Easily. I hear a lot of the old timers and guys out there that have such a negative opinion on fluorocarbon, and I'm like, oh, I don't see the problem. Well, I'm relatively young. Just kidding. No, the advancements in fluorocarbon nowadays, if you're not fishing fluorocarbon-based things for certain presentations that require it, you're losing out. Just like Don said, these guys with money's on the line, they're using it for that exact presentation that they need it for. You know, there's a million different uses, just like any of the other copolymer lines and braids. Each thing has its specific use, but Halo's an awesome line. I'm definitely gonna have to serve up a beating more on some fish with some Halo versus just the 100% fluorocarbon. Sometimes I require the 100%, and sometimes Halo's gonna be the choice for me now, just from you breaking it down like that.
You know, sometimes during low light conditions where there's not a lot of sunlight, you're probably not getting that much of a benefit from fluorocarbon. Because what's happening is fluorocarbon doesn't allow the transfer of light. So low light conditions or muddy or stained water. You're really not having any light penetration anyways. But if you get into conditions like this year, we're not having a lot of rain in California, so things are crystal clear, the lakes are real clear, the delta's clear, you better be using fluorocarbon.
That explains this farmer tan.
You know, you go down to the Florida Keys, you know, where you're fishing 4 feet of water, 5 feet of water, sight fishing, crystal clear conditions. You'd better be using fluorocarbon.
Oh yeah.
Tuna fishing, they're coming up into the water column. They're looking straight up into the sun.
Eye this big.
Huge eye.
Up there inspecting your lure, breaking it down.
I'll tell you what, if a guy's out fishing you and he's right next to you on the rail, he's probably using fluorocarbon.
Had that happen a week ago. No names though, fellas.
So yeah, there's definitely times and places where fluorocarbon has, you know, just a tremendous advantage.
Nice. Stay with us, guys, and when we come back, we'll be breaking down some more lines for you. Hey, what's up, guys? Nick the Informative Fisherman here, and when it comes to spooling up my reels, I choose nothing less than the best, and that's why I use P-Line each and every time. Are you fishing the best?
P-Line, baby. P-Line.
Did you ever wish for an RC boat when you were a kid? And do you have a passion for fishing? Well, guess what? It's time to do them both at the same time. With RCFishingWorld.com's RC Fishing Pole, it's time to be a kid again. So visit www.rcfishingworld.com today.
Ever tried pulling a planer board next to your boat when trolling or fishing from a swift current bank? If not, you're missing out on one of the most phenomenal fish catching machines on the market today. With Yellowbird planer boards pulling your lines perpendicular to your boat, you can't help but catch more fish. Find out more by visiting www.yellowbirdproducts.com. Have you been to rustylures.com? Did you know they offer free shipping on anything over $29.99? And with all the latest and greatest in bass fishing gear, from punching tackle, umbrella rigs, swim baits, and you name it, there's really no reason for you not to be getting the best deal online today. So go to www.rustylures.com. Have you had the chance to fish the baddest hoochie on the market today? That's right, I'm talking about the Shasta Tackle Wiggle Hoochie, one of the most dynamic reaction trout and salmon lures that runs second to no other for pulling and triggering fish into striking. So I guess the real question is, are you catching all the fish you should be catching? Thanks for watching. Now let's get back to the show.
Now here's a fancy one with a fancy cover on here. I like this. Should I buy it just for the looks, or can you actually tell me and educate me about this line here, Don?
Well, you're a guy that spends a lot of time on the water. You've got 8, 10, 12 reels filled with line. You're taking the whole stack out every time you go. You might only use 1 or 2 of the rods, using only 1 or 2 of the lines on them. But all of those lines are exposed to ultraviolet rays. What we've done here is we've made a co-polymer line and we put a UV inhibitor in it. What the UV inhibitor does is it keeps the ultraviolet rays from eating away at that nylon line. So the line is going to have a much longer length, much longer life than any of the other lines that we make.
So this would be a good choice if I was just looking to have a generalized line that was going to last me a lot longer. The life of the line is just going to be longer. It's not really presentation wise. This is just I want a line that's going to last me.
Well, I'll tell you, if I was a guide, I'd be using voltage, because I know that I'm not going to worry about my line for an extended period of time. I can have this line on my reel for months and months and months and know that that sun has not affected the breaking strength of this line.
All right, great.
So we do it in a clear color. We do it all the way down to 4-pound test, all the way up to 30, so there's a broad range. And it works well on a bait casting reel, great castability. I think it's a great line. I mean, I don't want people to think the only attribute is that it's got a UV inhibitor in it. It is a very good line.
Nice. Now, going along with that, I don't want to vary too far from the subject, but I get asked the question all the time, what are good methods for line storage, and how long does my line last on my reel? Do you have any tips for us or offer up any information in regards to that subject?
Absolutely. I think the most important thing is don't allow your line to be exposed to sunlight.
Okay.
So I've heard of people putting it in their garage, but they put it right next to a window and the line is getting degraded. So the best thing to do is I personally take my spools and I put them in a plastic tote. I make sure that they're not exposed to any type of chemicals, they're not exposed to any type of moisture, and I don't want them exposed to extreme heat or extreme cold. I personally keep mine in my garage, but if you live in areas where you get those real hot summers, extended periods where it's 100 degrees, you don't want your line baking in that plastic tote all year. So I think, you know, preferably keeping it in the house somewhere where it's in a controlled environment.
Okay. So now, Don, I've been seeing C21 all over the market, and I noticed the price tag on this thing from $4.99 to $5.99. That's an extremely reasonable price. What was the direction P-Line was going with this?
Our thought with this line is we wanted a good all-purpose line, but in these economic conditions, people are looking for a better value. So we made a line that is a good all-purpose line at a great value.
Yeah, that's fantastic for the entry-level angler to go pick up, or somebody is just looking to save a few bucks. C21, that's great. That's a great price tag on there. So as of recently, I've had the benefit of using HydroFloat out there, steelhead fishing, up in the Trinity with Don. If you guys haven't seen that episode, check that episode out. This stuff is absolutely fantastic. Now I can tell you about it, but once again, I'm going to pass over to Don. Don, break this stuff down for us and tell steelhead anglers why this is so beneficial to them.
You know, it's a pretty simple line. What we've done is we've taken a Spectra core and we've put a thermal fuse coating on the outside of it. That coating really allows the line to have a tremendous amount of buoyancy. When you're float fishing, you need to have the line on the surface. You need to be able to mend it, and with the high visibility, you need to be able to see it all the time.
Definitely.
So it's a line that is very technique specific for float fishing. Now, one of the things you can do to even increase the usability of this line that much more. You can buy it, use it straight out of the box, and it's going to fish great. But what I like to do is I like to take a little bit of the fly floatant and run it on about a 10-foot section of the line. What that does is it even improves the buoyancy more, and it allows the float to slide friction-free up and down the line, so there's less wear and tear.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, great product to use along with that. If you guys don't know how to use this stuff, check out the episode on steelhead fishing with Don and I. Just check it out on the channel. We'll break it down for you out there. There's a lot more information on that line to be had for you guys to check it all out. All right, Don, so now we've covered the copolymers, the fluorocarbons, we just covered the HydroFloat. Now let's look at the braid right here, the P-Line Spectrix braid right here. You know, a lot of the guys had this whole thought process in the past that braid was going to tear up all your gear, and you know, in the past it did, but with the advancements in braid nowadays, a lot more people are using this, the bite sensitivity, virtually zero stretch. But I want you to break down this bad boy in exact detail for us so guys can get a little bit more information on it.
When manufacturers first started manufacturing braid, one of the things that they did was they were using some materials that weren't really conducive to going through guides, and it was fairly destructive.
Okay.
In this day and age, manufacturers are using Spectra or they're using Dyneema.
Okay.
Both of those are gel spun polyethylenes, basically, which is a fancy name for a high tenacity spun plastic. There's nothing abrasive about those. So you're not going to have to worry about braided lines these days cutting through your guides. The one thing that you do have to worry about is braid has extremely low stretch, less than 1%. The fact that it has such a small stretch factor, if your drag isn't set properly, it can be very destructive on your rod or your reel.
Oh, yeah.
So you definitely have to fish braid with a lighter drag or with heavier equipment, you know, like some of the saltwater guys will do.
Right.
This particular, the line that we make, the Spectrex, is it's the raw material is made by Honeywell. So it's a domestically made product.
Right here in the States, yeah.
And unbelievable strength to diameter ratio. For instance, 100 pound has a 30 pound diameter.
Oh yeah, real thin.
What people like about, or what anglers like about this particular line is the strength to diameter ratio. For instance, you go up to Alaska, you're fishing in 400 feet of water. You're trying to put a 2-pound ball down there with 16 feet of current moving. You need a line that's going to cut the water real well. And the smaller diameter Spectra allows you to do that. The fact that it's got zero stretch, or virtually zero stretch, you're fishing a quick fish in 30 feet of water. You got a 2-ounce lead weight. You're trying to feel the bottom. You're trying to feel your lure work. And you're trying to feel a bite. You're trying to feel 3 different unique things going on at the end of the line. That zero stretch transmits what's going on at the end of the line much better.
All that movement's telling that whole story down there.
Or, you know, I know you're a Delta guy. What do you throw your frogs on?
Braid.
Why?
Because it's brutal and I can rip those hogs right through the thickest of the Delta snot.
You know, that's what a lot of people use braid for, is when you're throwing into that structure, when you're throwing into the jungle, the small diameter of the braid helps cut through all that vegetation much easier.
Slides right through.
You go on a long range trip, you got to put 30 pounds of drag on a boat because the boat's sitting on anchor, and you hook a 250 pound tuna and you got to put 30 pounds of drag on it. You need braided line.
Can hold up.
So there's situations where you need it, there's situations where I think it's overkill, and frankly, it probably ruins some of the fun in some aspects of your fishing. You don't need braided line when you're trout fishing. You know, you don't need it in a lot of different applications, but there's certainly a time and a place for braided line.
Oh yeah, it has its purpose. Now a lot of the guys are getting confused and they're tying directly onto their braid out there in clear water. Now that's a huge mistake, and this is where a lot of your leaders come into play. Now, P-Line's been known for making great leader material for a long time, so why don't you break some of this down for us?
The P-Line original leader material we've had for a number of years. This is a great product. We make it from 50 pound all the way to 500. In the lighter pound test, guys will use it for albacore fishing when they're fishing tuna clones and jet heads and things like that. When you get up into the heavier pound test, rigging marlin lures, big halibut leaders, things like that, where you start using the 300, 400, and 500. So that's a real, you know, we do the broad spectrum of sizes and it'll cover a lot of different applications.
Nice.
Now we also make 2 different fluorocarbon leader materials. The first one would be the Cfx leader material. Now this line, personally, I think it's the toughest, strongest, most durable fluorocarbon on the market.
I would have to agree.
It is it's got off the chart abrasion resistance. When you're dealing with gill plates, when you're dealing with toothy critters, when you're getting down into structure, the CFX is definitely the toughest of the tough. But the main attribute of fluorocarbon is invisibility. That's why you're buying fluorocarbon leader material. You don't want the fish to be able to see the line when they're getting to the area where they're going to strike a bait or a lure.
Be as natural as possible.
So the CFX is tough and durable. Now we have a second 100% pure fluorocarbon leader material, which is the Shinsei. Now the Shinsei is a softer leader material. When it's softer, it doesn't have quite the abrasion resistance, but the attributes of this are that it's got a little bit more stretch. Because in a lot of situations we are using braided line, and with the braided line we don't have any stretch, we attach a piece of fluorocarbon which does have stretch.
Now we got that shock, that nice cushion.
There's room for some human error there. You know, you set the drag a little bit too tight, you pull on that fish a little bit too hard. With no stretch, you're going to have some failure.
Rip them free.
You know, you may break equipment, you may straighten hooks, you may break split rings, or you may pull the hook.
May break your gear.
So now, now we're putting in a shock absorber, but we're doing it with fluorocarbon, which is clear and doesn't allow the transfer of light, has the same refractive index as water, so it's virtually invisible.
Yeah, great choice.
So yeah, it's a good 1-2 punch. The Spectrex line to a fluorocarbon leader is a great option.
That's definitely the way to go. You don't want to tie directly on, unless you're fishing over the thickest of mats. Then you can tie directly onto your braid if you're using a plastic frog out there on top of mats where they're not going to see your line. But anytime they're going to see your line, you need to focus on using these leader materials. All right, Don, now I'm gonna play a little game here. We're gonna cover some different things, and I'm gonna bring up certain scenarios, and I want you to jump to the first line that rings off the hip for you.
Perfect.
Let's say I'm out drop shotting 30 foot deep, crystal clear water.
I would use fluorocarbon, for sure. Drop shotting, light presentation, clear water, so you're getting the fluorocarbon and you're getting the sensitivity. So invisibility and sensitivity.
All right, let's say I'm out trolling for brown trout, freezing conditions outside. It's almost freezing. Let's say it's down into the mid 30s and I'm setting back 150 feet behind the boat and I still want to detect my baits moving.
I would probably, me personally, I would probably use a real light braided line, 20-pound test, and I would put a fluorocarbon leader on it, just simply because you're trolling so far back and you're wanting to detect those light bites.
Okay.
Another option would also be CX Premium because it does have low stretch. It also, you mentioned cold. It's got a silicone coating on it. The silicone fluorocarbon coating is going to reduce water absorption, so it's not going to be affected by the cold conditions.
Awesome. Now, I want to take my little girls out bluegill fishing.
Okay. I would, well, if you're going bluegill fishing and you're going with your little girls, it's probably not, you're not being real serious about it.
We're talking about princess rods here.
You know, the best valued line we have, C21, just because it's an inexpensive line, but it's a real, like we mentioned earlier, a good all-purpose line that's going to get the job done and not break the bank.
And when they tangle up daddy, I can cut it and I'm not having to cry about it.
Exactly.
All right, now let's say I'm flipping out on the Delta, right in the midst of the Toolies, and the real thick stuff. What would be a good line for me then?
One of two lines. I personally like the CXX.
Okay.
We actually had a guy win a tournament a few years ago, a BASS tournament, and he was finesse flipping 10-pound in toolies because he said that he couldn't get bit with heavier lines or with braided line.
Needed that natural flow.
But in the Delta, you know, you're in the jungle and it's pea soup. You can certainly also use the Spectrex braid to get the job done also. So you got two options there.
Now let's say I want to run down to Mexico and hammer a big old tuna.
Oh, I think that I think you've got a few different options. I mean, you definitely could use the CXX Extra Strong. I just have a filler spool here, but I would use that in the heavier pound test. You know, we make it 60, 80, 100. Okay. So I would probably fish 60 pound. Okay. If I was trolling, I would have it. I would have my lures rigged with the P100B leader material. If I was bait fishing, I would probably, because the bait strikes are a little more subtle, I'd probably go with a fluorocarbon leader on it.
All right, now let me throw this one at you. Let's say I went up to the Smith River. I want the biggest steelhead of my life. Okay. I can't lose them. Can't afford to lose them. What am I catching this bad boy on?
I think, you know, I'm a steelhead guy at heart. For sure. So I would go with the CX Premium. Most of the guys up there are using the clear fluorescent because you're side drifting in those conditions.
You need to be able to see it.
So the guides need to be able to position the boat to where the lines are at. So I'd use the CX Premium in 12 or 15 pound, and I would use an 8-pound CFX leader. If I had higher water, I'd bump the leader up a little bit. But in clear water, I'd drop down to 8.
Awesome. If you guys have any more questions that you want me to run by Don here, you can call me on the helpline, send me an email, drop a message right under this video. I'll pick this guy's brain right here. You can pick my brain. We'll get it all answered. P-Line's willing to do this for you guys, and I'm willing to do it for you guys. Thanks for watching, guys. Don, appreciate your time. We'll see you next time, guys.